So what I want to do in this video is to show you how you can properly export transparent textures in Unity. Now, textures that have transparent regions are known as alpha textures, and there's a special way in which you should save them to make them work correctly in Unity. Now, the Unity documentation online does detail how to do this, and you can find the relevant information. Let me just bring in a web browser window into the screen here. You can find the relevant documentation at docs.unity3d.com documentation manual how to alphamaps.html, and this page actually goes through the whole process of how to save and export the alpha textures correctly. But what I'm going to show you in this video is just a quick rundown on how to do it. Now, the first thing you need to do is to download and save this file to your computer and install it to Adobe Photoshop. It is a pre-made action that we will need to run, and we're going to see how to use that in just a moment. So I'm going to jump over to Photoshop and show you how to export the alpha texture. So here we are in Unity with this texture here of a Brigadier character. And you will notice that he has a transparent background, and we know that because of the checker pattern appearing behind him. Now, let's say that I want to save this texture and import it into Unity. Well, the way we can do this, we could just save this as a PNG file, but the transparency information will not import in the way that we need. So we're going to need to make use of those Photoshop actions in order to save this texture properly. So the first thing that I'm going to do is we have this layer here with the Brigadier character on it. And I'm going to duplicate that layer by dragging and dropping the Brigadier layer onto the new icon at the bottom. So drag and drop it onto the new icon, and we create a Brigadier copy layer. And we're going to be working primarily with this layer so that we don't damage any of the pixels on the original layer. Okay, so now that I've created this copy here, I'm going to move up here to the menu and choose Layer, Matting, and select the option that says Defringe. I'm going to choose that, leave these settings here, width of 1 pixel, and choose OK. And then I'm going to open up our Actions palette by choosing Window, Actions, or I can press Alt F9 on the keyboard. And here we have our Actions. And we have this Dilate action. Now, making sure that the Brigadier copy layer is selected and the Dilate action is selected, I'm going to press play, and I'm going to press play several times to create some duplicates here. Now I'm going to close the Actions palette, and you will know that the actions here have created several duplicate layers. Now I'm going to select the top copy layer and the bottom one, but I'm not going to select the original. And I'm going to merge these layers together by right-clicking on them, and from the context menu choosing the Merge Layers option. And all of these layers are now merged together with the exception of the original Brigadier layer. In fact, I can toggle the visibility of the merged layer, and you will begin to see that what this action has done is it has thickened the pixels around the border of the image. That is something that's important that we need to do. But the next thing that we need to do is to create an alpha channel for this image. Now, to do that, I'm going to move back to the original layer, and we're going to be creating the alpha channel from the original layer and not from this duplicate layer. The duplicate layer is much thicker and wider. We want to create an alpha channel from the original. So I'm going to move my mouse cursor over the thumbnail of that layer, hold down the Control key on the keyboard, and click to create a margin ant selection around the border of this layer. So that what we have selected now is effectively the alpha channel. I'm going to switch to the Channels palette and create the alpha channel by selecting this new layer from Selection, and it will create a new alpha channel here that you can see. If I click on that alpha channel, you can see that we've created white pixels in the selected region, and this is the area that we want to appear fully opaque, and the black region will be transparent. So I'm going to switch back to the RGB channel, and we can see our image here. Now, the last thing that we need to do is to fill the background with an appropriate color. Now, the color of the background should match and be consistent with the color of these border pixels. Now in the case of this image, this character is surrounded by a completely black border, so we can use a black background. To do that, I'm going to create a new layer by choosing the new layer button. I'm going to drag and drop that to the bottom of the stack so that it's the background. And I'm just going to fill this layer with black pixels. Over here in our color selector, we have the black color already selected. So to fill that layer, I'm just going to press Alt Backspace on the keyboard, and this is now filled with black pixels. Now, whether I'm using a texture that has transparent pixels or not, when I'm saving any texture for Unity, we want to just try and save the highest quality version possible. So in the case of this texture, but any other textures that I want to save, I will just save it in the Photoshop PSD format, which is the highest texture settings that we have available. So I'm going to press Ctrl S to save this file, and it is now ready to import into Unity. Okay, so I've saved out the transparent Brigadier texture and I've imported that into Unity. You can see that here in the project panel here. If I select the Brigadier texture, you can see all of the default settings applied to that texture. It is 512 by 512 pixels, and we're using the standard compression here. It's a standard texture using bilinear filtering. Now, we could come in and change these settings if we wanted to. I'm going to leave them as they are. What I want to do now is I want to create a basic plane object in the scene and apply our texture to it to see the transparency in action. So I'm going to choose Game Object, Create Other, and I'm going to select Plane to put a plane into the scene. I'm just going to rotate that around so that we get a better view of it here, and drag and drop our texture onto that plane. Now, when we do that, you'll see right away that what we're seeing is the black background of the texture, and it's not appearing with the transparency as we want. Now, we can fix this by adjusting the material that has been applied to this plane. I can open up the materials folder, find the Brigadier material that we have, and you will see that for the shader type, the shader type is set to diffuse. Now, to get this transparency to work, we need to change the shader. There are a number of different options we could choose, including those in the transparent category, but I'm going to choose Unlit Transparent Cutout. And as soon as I do that, ta-da, you will see that we have a texture and we have the transparency information applied, and we can see right through those transparent areas. In fact, I can even scale up this plane to any size I like, and the transparency information continues to be applied without any artifacting or distortion. So that's how we get transparency up and running in Unity.